So, what do you think of today's game then?
So look, obviously the desired result achieved. Tough game for both sides with the conditions. Game of two halves certainly. Obviously you got the slope to contend with a Mildenhall anyway, but with the wind as it was against the slope, against the wind. The first slice of fortune for us was to win the toss and obviously defend the hill first half, which is what we intended to do. And again, we got a nice early goal. Which allowed us. I wouldn't say it necessarily settled us down. I thought Grays were the better side first half, but it allowed us to go in at 1-1, which was a mini victory in many ways. We obviously regrouped it second half. We spoke about the conditions being in our favour and us just having to do the basics slightly better, and the conditions would take care of themselves, and so it prevailed. I mean. I think it was just a case of pressure told for the penalty. I thought it was a penalty. It was well finished by Ryan Sharman. And then the final goal, obviously, straight in from a corner. A slice of luck that we haven't had much of, particularly over the last 2 or 3 months. But again, the ball was whipped into a good area with the conditions as they are. It's going to be difficult to defend. So yeah, I'm over the moon with the result. Not for the reasons everybody else thinks, but just as a reward for the boys, really. Like I said, we've been on a tough run over the last couple of months in particular, unfairly in many ways, because we haven't performed as badly as results have suggested. And the boys have stuck together, stuck at it, took the flak, and never once wavered in terms of their togetherness and endeavour. So it was just a reward for them, and like I said, I'm over the moon for them.
Brilliant. And 5 games left of the season. Any thoughts on those coming up?
Yeah, obviously they're huge for the club in terms of its standing next season. We'll be treating them like we treat every game. I've always said every game Mildenhall will play while I'm in charge, we'll be playing to win. It doesn't matter who we're playing against. I've never played for points, I've played for victories, and I'll continue to do that. So like I said, relegation battle, no relegation battle, our attitude doesn't change. We want to finish as high at the table as we can. Hopefully that's not in the bottom 4. Like I said, naturally we want to stay at this level, and as manager I obviously want to leave the club in a better position than what I found it. But if it is, that's our fate. And like I said, that if we do finish in the bottom 4, there'll be no lack of effort or endeavour or trying from myself, the management team, all the players. I can assure anybody who watches this video that we are given 100% to the cause. And like I said, it's going to be a tough finish for me for what has been 4 years. Like I said, I've had a painless 3.5 years in truth. Got to Christmas, it's been painless. Nothing but successful really. And then out of nowhere we go on this run through January and February, which puts us in a bit of a pickle. Like I said, I'm scrounging around searching for why it's happened, questioning absolutely everything. Ultimately I'm the manager of the football club. It's my fault. I've got to be accountable for that. And we find ourselves in the situation that we are in. But the true test of a man is how they act when things are down. Football and life are very easy when things are going well. And like I said, the times are hard at the moment on the pitch, and you see what it means to the lads today. Like I said, there's no lack of effort or endeavour. I've backed every single one of those lads to the hill. I take them all in the trenches with me, and if that's where we've got to go for 5 games, that's where we go.
Excellent. And what does the future hold for you, Weaves?
Your guess is as good as mine. To be honest. Look, in terms of football, I'm not 100% sure. I've certainly got no plans. I was quite open about it. I think I feel like I've got something to give to the game. I pride myself on being slightly different to everybody else. I want to be unique. I don't want to conform to. I'm way too emotional to be a football manager. I'm an emotional roller coaster. You can see how I'm feeling just by looking at me, and you kind of celebrated as a football manager by being level-headed, not getting. I'm the complete opposite to that. But I've never tried to shy away from that. I think authenticity is key to whatever you do. So I feel like I've got a little bit to give, but I've also got 2 very young kids at home who they don't demand my attention. They need my attention. They're my kids. And like I said, when I took this job 4 years ago, I had no kids, believe it or not. I remember sitting on the bottom of my bed, me and my wife, double income, no kids. Let's go. Let's have a spell as a football manager. Within a month, we were expecting our first. you know, and 4 years on, I've now got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. You know, and as much as I love football, I do love football. I hate leaving my kids more, you know, and as the years have gone on, it's got harder and harder to walk away from them on a Saturday afternoon. So like I said, if football is my future, it's going to have to be some gig to carry on leaving them on a Saturday afternoon. But look, my priority is Mildenhall Town, certainly for the next month. And beyond, you know, I'd love to see the club do well and succeed. Like I said, I've never held. I think that's half the reason why I've walked away when I have, mate. I don't want any animosity or to burn any bridges or whatever. You know, like I've worked hard for the club for 4 years. The club's worked hard for me. You know, it's been a marriage, not of convenience, but a really good partnership, and I wouldn't want that to be soured. You know, board members, supporters, players, anything like that. Yeah. Like I said, I believe regardless of whether we get promoted or relegated, the club is in a far better position than it was when I took it over 4 years ago. I think anybody at the club can see and agree and appreciate that. I like to think I've played a part in that. And like I said, I want my legacy to be defined by the relationships that I've formed. You know, what the players' opinion of me, staff, supporters. You know, I've always tried to pride myself on being a good bloke over a good football manager. Rightly or wrongly, I've tried to do things the right way. Every decision I've made with the club's interest at heart, not my own. I could have made some decisions that would have been a lot easier for me to go the other way. But I've done what I thought was right. You know, look, I've got no regrets, that's certain. So what will be, will be. Yeah, I'm happy. You know, I've given football management a go. A lot of people think they can do it, but I'm willing to put their hand up. You know, I put my hand up 4 years ago as a young man, and I'm now leaving a very much, well, I'm only 30, I'm 38 next week, or a couple of weeks' time. I feel 48. Football's a big factor to that, so I'm an old man now. But look, I'll only look back at it fondly.
Brilliant. And on behalf of the committee and the fans, obviously we wish you all the best for the future.
Yeah, look, and like I said, I can't speak highly enough of the club, of the board, of the supporters, of every player that's played for me. You know, I've got nothing negative to say about anybody. It's been a joy over the last 4 years. Like I said, I've had a turbulent 4 years. It'd take too long for me to tell you what's happened to me over the last 4 years. You know, good and bad, off the pitch. But the one thing that has stayed constant is this: I've been manager of Mildenhall Town. Obviously, my life now is a bit different. My constant is my children and my wife, and you know, and it's time for football to go. So I think part of life is recognising, you know, is timing. And had we not gone on this bad run of form, would I have walked away? Who knows? You know, so like I said, I believe in that I'm a faithful bloke. You know, I believe that my path is mapped out for me. You know, and all I can do is the very best with what I'm given. And like I said, I believe my path now is to walk away and let somebody else keep the club on. You know, which is what I hope it does.